I find it so ironic that it's the LDS people that are attacking you. And at the same time, they're your biggest fans too. And
Yeah,
I
that's
and
true.
I think
That's
anytime
true.
you see negative comments, it's like when you go see a movie and there's negative comments. Negativity outweighs from a commenting section and going into an email way more than a positive review. There's like very few people that'll go in and do a positive review. People love going in and just keyboard warrior, the
Right.
negative reviews. And so it's
Well,
very
there's,
ironic to me that the hate's coming from the LDS side when so much of what you're saying is affirming and
oh,
uplifting
yeah, yeah.
and confirming
Hey,
in the Book of Mormon, the LDS narrative, all of it. It's incredible what you're
well,
saying,
hey,
and they're crapping
maybe
on
they
that.
should go listen to go to YouTube and Google Heber J. Grant and sorry, YouTube, J. Grant and YouTube, George A. Smith. When you do, you'll understand that I speak exactly how they used to speak to you. Okay. You've just forgotten that because there are guys sitting on, $1 trillion, 100 billion in cash, and they don't have to talk. They don't have to talk with passion because they don't really care what you do. Let me tell you something. I keep getting asked, and I'll clarify it right now. You don't follow the prophet? No, I follow Jesus Christ. And if you knew anything, you'd read the Torah, not the Bible, which is the written Torah, the oral Torah. Oh, there's another oral. Well, you got oral called a temple too. They do too. And the oral Torah says that when Moses took his staff and slammed it on the ground and commanded the waters to part, they did not part. That it was a man who turned and said, well, didn't God say I'm supposed to cross the water? And Moses said, yes, I commanded the water to part when we crossed the water. Well, they hadn't crossed the water yet. So the man said, well, then I'm going to follow God. And he turned and started walking. And this is in the Torah. And when he walked into the water and it got to his nose, he took one step more and it passed his nose and the whole water parted. Because the second we follow
Wow.
God, his blessings are poured out upon us. But the second you tell people they have to follow a man who's supposed to be professing to you that way, you're in a problem. You got a problem. And you know what? We'll see. Because those who say they follow God and the Savior, that throw themselves birthdays you wouldn't see outside of North Korea or China, really should sit down and reflect. Really sit down and reflect.
Do you feel
Because you
kind
got
of like
others.
Sam? Do you feel kind of like Samuel the Lamanite
Well,
right now a little bit?
Totally.
I know who I am and I know what I'm doing and I know where we're going. And it doesn't matter what a European descendant thinks or those who think they have the authority to bring people into the house of Israel. I am the house of Israel. It was my ancestors who showed up in the boat that ensured the matrilineal lines continued so that I could stand here and speak to you today. And if you don't like it, you have to learn to love it because it's reality. And what they're afraid of is the message that we're sharing for this fall when we're going to use the systems you gave to us. You said we got to have elections. Oh, great. We're going to have elections. All of our communities are having elections this fall. But what is it that we're talking about? It's called Project 24. This is what they want to diminish and get rid of. Project 24. Do you mind if I rattle off about Project 24?
Fire away.
Please.
Okay. So Project 24 is that we must recognize, and I'm speaking to you, tribal peoples, to not forget who you are. We are a sacred people. And we were saved for this time to speak right now to them, our brothers and sisters, to return to the circle. We have to recognize our unique community challenges, but also our shared goals. We have to advocate and champion restoring the 7 grandfather teachings into our governance and communities. We have to prioritize tradition, family, voting, and language rights, and together envision unity. Our journey is forged by centuries of real resilience amidst systematic challenges, genocide. And as we are the first generation post the 200 years of assimilation policies by the United States and Canada, we confront the ongoing disparities and threats to our cultural identity. Project 24 emerges as our response, uniting us to safeguard our heritage and shape our future of empowerment and unity. While some merely discuss, we set the benchmarks for tangible restoration, and we seek to give you an organized platform to demand action for your community leadership. Our motto is to hell with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. We have to unite our communities. First year, 2024, we're going to have elections, and we're going to institute resolutions that strip out anything from our forced constitutions that were given by those that violate international law. 2025, we're going to initiate internal responsibility. 2026, external responsibility. What's that mean? Phase 1, we're going to institute the 7 grandfather teachings, protect family rights, protect voting rights, and protect language rights. Phase 2, shared citizenship, shared economies, international diplomacy. We have to integrate the 7 grandfather teachings and their meanings into our tribal constitutions as the foundation for of our actions with principle. We have to require by resolution our leaders write a 7th generation justification before any law takes effect, because right now we are at war with our unborn grandchildren, and you know it's true. We are taking more for ourselves now when we know our grandchildren won't breathe fresh air, fresh water, and have anything but charred earth to live upon. We have to prioritize restoring lineal descent as the cornerstone of tribal citizenship, freeing communities from the confines of blood quantum and externally forced status controls. Embracing our heritage, we must aspire to a future of inclusivity and equality for our families, just as every other nation in the world does. We must advocate for the acknowledgement of protecting voting rights for all tribal citizens of age, irrespective of their geographic location. And you know that our people can't vote unless they're in the reservations, and we don't live there. And so we're led by 5 to 7%. It is a human right to have a voice in your community, and we must ensure every voice is a vote that counts. We must advocate for the protection of our language rights. Language is family, and we have to advocate for the inclusion of traditional tribal languages of North America in our schools. To hell with the U.S. Department of Education. We need our language in our public presentations and official documents within our territories. And this commitment aims to uphold and advance our linguistic heritage in all aspects of our community life. Phase 2, that's year 1. Phase 2, a unified political and economic identity. We must achieve a unified political economic identity based on our ideals, beliefs, and traditions that we share. We must integrate our elected and treaty dukedom councils locally and nationally, free from external influences. If their communities can speak as one, coast to coast, we have to do it the same, and we have it in us to do it. They're not special. They're not more special than we are. We're sacred. We're the people of Turtle Island. We need a unified citizenship. We must advocate for a shared tribal citizenship for Turtle Island, North America, an identification and travel system akin to the US and Canadian federal state model. Except that it's unified for all tribal peoples of North America, Central America, and South America. We must promote consistency and unity, aligning with global sovereign nations, but respecting their borders are not our limitations, empowering our collective voice and inspiring a global mandate of one human family. We have to remind them that they can join us. We must advocate for a transformative shift in global communication practices, urging communities to cease interactions with interior departments of the US and Canada. We are not their property. Instead, we call for diplomatic engagements with state departments, aligning with other sovereign nations to bolster our international standing. We must demand together for state-to-state communications, and we have to do it as one. So I'm calling for our communities this year. Project 24 will return the tide, is an invitation to shape our future guided by the 7 grandfather teachings given by that great father, honoring the 7 fires prophecy. We exist to speak now, to engage our shared insights and forge a resilient, united community rooted in tradition and progressive growth for generations to come. Now is the time to champion these things.
Geez, Mitiga for president. Let's go. Trevor, I want to thank you for that. I want to transition. We have some questions based on comments that people have made, but also based on some things that we've uncovered. And I'm curious to your thoughts. So take it away, Trevor.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I wanted to say is with what's going on right now with Palestine and Israel, I see a lot of similarities. And, you see how so many people that are condemning Palestine for what they're trying to accomplish and you look at your people and the plight that's against them and what's being done, maybe there's not a war going on by genocide, but there's this paper genocide. Like I didn't know there was a thing called paper genocide. I was saying that's genocide by the pen. It's exactly what that is. And you see how they're trying to go about it. And from what I'm hearing, what you're rattling is essentially
Trevor,
conversation and Yasser Arafat.
Trevor, we're losing
yeah.
you. Your connection is bad or something.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah,
I was flowing. Can you hear me now? What I was saying is that what Yasser Arafat
it's not
maybe relocate Bill Clinton in the 90s.
Okay, he dropped.
And there he goes.
Okay.
Hey, well, I can talk on that. There's a couple issues going on here that we have to respect. The first one is that 3,000 years ago, somebody stacked those stones that were the foundation for that temple. That's number one. Okay, that's number one. Number two, even at that time, there were those that lived along the coast that were the seafaring peoples that were there equally at the same time. They have been children of Abraham from the beginning. They have been going at each other like Cain and Abel since the beginning. Now, I will tell you this, that while it says that, a nation should not perish for one person, right? But, what's that saying? How's that saying in the Book of Mormon go? That it's better that, how does it go about the one?
It says it's better for one man to perish, save a whole nation.
Yeah. Well, it's the reverse. It's not better that a whole nation perishes just because a few are idiots.
That's true.
To force, if we are just stop and we just breathe, we know that every mother on this planet is lineal descent to the first mother. Set aside your invisible borders, set aside your economic division, put it all aside. Every single mother, every mother is a daughter of a mother who's a daughter of a mother back to the first mother. Every one of them are equal in the sight of God. And there is no victory in children standing in ash. There's no victory in that. And so while we look at the Jew who for 2 millennia did not live in the Middle East, they lived in Europe. They certainly went through a horrific thing in World War II, but it certainly didn't justify them putting upon somebody else their worst nightmare that they experienced. And is not a child amidst falling buildings living in the very nightmare when they have nowhere to go. Now, I wouldn't condemn the rabbis and spiritual leaders of Israel, because they themselves have declared there's no victory in destroying an entire people over the decisions of a few. And Hamas is a few. They're a few that use human beings as shields. Okay? But there's no excuse to go in and do what could have been done in 3 days. And you're not talking to an idiot. I was in the Marine Corps for 14 years. And we have collapsed nations in weeks without doing what has been done there. That is a complete disregard for humanity. And I would say that they have to remember very acutely, as they are children of Abraham, so is the Arab a child of Abraham. And there's no victory in causing generational trauma and suffering. But they learned well, apparently, from the European, because they're certainly doing that. But this is what our experience as well as that. But I don't believe in this concept of a free Palestine, because somebody stacked those stones 3,000 years ago. But I also know that if we're being honest, and I'll repeat this, and we read the Torah, the Philistines were still there. They were there at the same time that the Jewish tribe went there. And they've always been conflicting with each other because one thought he was a better brother to the father than the other. Don't forget that Ishmael was the firstborn son of Abraham, who wept for his son when he went off into the desert, even if he was sent. Don't forget that after his wife Sarah died, he sought out Hagar and he married her. She was not a handmaiden in that moment, and they wept for their son in the desert, and they were given a promise that he would be brought back. It's not your job when you've been given stewardship over your cousins and brothers to return them to the creator of all things seen and unseen. And I do throw the sword their way, because it's not their job to proclaim themselves as more special as a child just because their father left them a responsibility. Their responsibility is to follow the third and fourth law of Noah. The 613 mitzvahs they took upon themselves at the mountain, they were told and instructed, did not make them better than those who are the Gentile, and are not all Gentiles the children of Noah equally. And that the third law says that mankind is sacred in creation, their spirit fashioned in the image of the Lord. And the fourth is because of that, what the Lord has given, ordained, granted, what you have obtained is not another's to take away. And certainly the life that's been given to you is not the right of any person to take away. There is no justification other than an entire nation will perish unless you disappear. But you can't make an entire nation disappear just because you don't like a few.
Gotcha.
And
Trevor.
Yeah. So I think before I was cutting out, and it sounds like you talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to finish that point. I'm seeing a lot of parallels between what's happening with Israel and with Palestine. And I think those parallels to what's happening with your people and all of the Native American tribes and America in this lineage, it's ripe with symmetry, and it's a type and a shadow of each other, like completely, right? And ironically, it's the same people, right? That's what's really, really crazy about it. And what I think is neat is, as you're rattling off this agenda, and I love how you're just spewing that from memory. And this is one thing that my mom said listening to your interview. She's like, he just has so much information in his head and he just rattles it off, just like you were rattling off the code 2974 2-1, like you just have all this information in your head and you open up and you're just flowing. And I love it. It's really cool. But the question that I wanted to transition to, and this is kind of pivoting in here, these are some of the questions that people have put, or comments that people have put. Some of them, they're just going to be like nice things that people have said about you, right? But some of them are like comments or questions. And one of them that somebody posted, they said, did you hear about the white buffalo that was just born in Yellowstone? And then it said, there's a prophecy about the white buffalo. So I went in to ChatGPT and I said, what is the prophecy of the white buffalo? And this is what it said, okay? And it says, Native American prophecies, particularly among the Plain tribes, hold the birth of a white buffalo calf as highly significant. The white buffalo calf woman is a central figure in the Lakota Sioux traditions. Here are some of the key aspects of this prophecy. And by the way, Shane asked me, he said, how often is a white buffalo? Like, how rare is it? We went in and asked ChatGPT, 1 in 10 million. 1 in 10 million. I think the last one was in the late 1700s, okay? And so these are the prophecies tied to it. The white buffalo calf woman legend. According to the Lakota legend, a divine figure known as the white buffalo calf woman brought sacred ceremonies and teachings to the people. She promised to return one day, and her return would be heralded by the birth of a white buffalo calf. Symbolism. The white buffalo calf is seen as a symbol of hope, renewal. It represents peace, harmony, and a new era of understanding and unity among all people. The birth of the white buffalo calf is considered a powerful sign from the Creator, signaling a time of great change and spiritual awakening. Modern sightings. There have been several instances in recent history where white buffalo calves were born, which have met with reverence and celebration by Native American communities. These events were often viewed as a fulfillment of the... Okay, so I'm going to keep going. So then I asked ChatGPT, when was the most recent? It says, recent reports have highlighted births of several white buffalo calves, which hold significant spiritual importance to Native American cultures, particularly among the Lakota. Number one, Yellowstone National Park. And we're going to do a field trip to go see this thing. We're going to find it. Yellowstone National Park, a white buffalo calf was born in Yellowstone Lamar Valley on June 4th, 2024. This is right when you started to come out of the woodwork, right?
Yeah.
Right when you're coming out of June 4th. There was a second one born in the same year, which hasn't happened in recorded history, at least that we know of. The second one was born in Burnett, Texas on April 22nd, 2024. I mean, a month and a half of each other,
So
right?
we know.
And so,
you want me to talk on this?
yes, absolutely. So
First of all, the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, the Oglala, the Sisseton, Wahpeton, Yanktonai. They are Ossetia Sakawan. They are called the people of the star. They were a part of us in such a way that even Sault Ste. Marie, the Garden River Ojibwe Nation, which is our capital, we're called the people of the Sioux. And it was the heartbeat of where these people were from when they came to us. That we had our 7 fires migration and they had their 7 fires too, but they are a sacred people. They're the people of the star. And they carried the 8-pointed star. And even if you were to go on YouTube and Google the story of Mama Gazita and Wapasha, they were half brothers because the women, the star women, were always married to in between the 2 cultures. If one was born within the Sioux, they were married to a male from the Anishinaabe. And if one was Anishinaabe, they were married to the Sioux because they were the people of the star. They are a sacred people. We know that the first man, when he was lowered from the spirit world to this earth, as he was coming down, he saw that the first mother, who was in spirit form too, was placed within the earth, and from her came all life. And we know that when he walked this earth as a spirit before he stepped into physical form, that he went around and met everything as a spirit first. This is the story of Wenebojo. It's a title he carried in his spirit form. We know that then he conversed with his best friend, the Creator, and he said that I'm alone. And the Creator said, no, you're not. And he was taken to the East Coast, to the red clay where bodies were fashioned. And while he was lowered in, the first mother was lifted up. The first mother was lifted up. And so when we see these things, we know that the earth, even the earth is carrying the symbolic, the spiritual connection with the first mother of all things. And so when we say that the white buffalo calf woman who came, that was the first mother coming to her children upon the land that she first walked and reminding them of their sacred obligations to following the Creator. Just as we know that the first father does the same. But together they are one. And so these things are telling you that if you ever were a Mormon and you're thinking about Adam on Diamen, and you're thinking about, Adam being there when Jesus returns, you think he's not going to be standing there with his wife, with the first mother? This is the patriarchal nonsense that has to go away. We are in a sacred time. We are in the last period, and it's not a last period. It's going to be hundreds of years.
Awesome. So on the same subject, I found a similarity between the red heifer prophecy that the Jews are looking for, this red heifer and this white buffalo. I'm curious if there's any connections. I see that there are some connections, but have you ever considered that?
No, I hadn't thought about it.
Okay. I think there's something to that. And as we know, they have red heifers in Israel right now. And the purpose of these red heifers are, before they can bring back the daily sacrifice and reinstate the temple, they have to sacrifice one of these red heifers. They have to take the ashes from the red heifer, mix it in with the living water to sanctify the priests before they can, renew the temple ordinances.
Yeah, they didn't lose their authority. They just stopped practicing.
Yeah, they're just waiting.
And when we met last November, and just consider, these are the people of the scrolls and the people of the Torah. Now, the Bible is like half of the Torah, and the Book of Mormon is like 1/100th of the scrolls of our history. So I would certainly believe that if those who have been believing that the Bible, which is a fraction of the Torah, and the Book of Mormon, which is a fraction of the history of the peoples of North America combining, is not the 2 sticks combining. The 2 sticks is the sources they come from standing together. And so it's not surprising that after November, when we sat together and we said we're brothers, that there's a lot that's happening, a lot. The reality, but again, that doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect. It means that when the candle's lit, the darkest shadows initially will be around the light. We should expect to see the worst. And as the United States citizens are now looking at their politics, and they've always thought it's a snake against a snake. Well, it's evil. While one's trying to skin you from the ear down, the other's trying to skin you from the ankle up, and who benefits? When they got the sacred fire of technology, which took what you could do in a 10-hour day to a 1-hour day, did they give you your time back with your families? No.
Yeah, no. No.
They said, we'll
Husband
take
and
more
wife are
time
working
away
now.
from your families.
Yeah. Yeah,
Things
wives
like
are having to work right now. My friends are being like, dude, house payments are $3,500 a month. My wife has to work now. This wasn't a thing 15 years ago.
And how's it possible if we have more technology to achieve more in a shorter period of time, and so that requires two parents to work now, even though the technology made everything 100th better? How is that?
Right.
How does that tell you the system is designed for you to be successful? And what is successful if it's not to be a mother and father?
Absolutely. Okay, so on the white buffalo lady, okay, and I don't know if I'm saying their name right. There is another account that nothing to do with LDS, and interestingly enough, it's this guy named Chris Bledsoe, and you can YouTube this guy Chris Bledsoe, and you can do Chris Bledsoe the lady, okay. And in this story, he saw a white orb, and out of it, he got a messenger from this lady, and he called her the lady. And she told him some really important information. It's about 15 minutes of what she told him. But interestingly enough, he's had visitors come to his house from the NSA, from the CIA, from the Department of Defense, and they wanted to know. They just came to his house and were like, what did the white lady tell you? They wanted to know what the white lady told him. And interestingly enough, the crux of the matter was, she says, this is the era where the divine feminine is going to reemerge, and the role and the importance of women is going to be restored. And there's a huge movement that this is moving towards. And I noticed that one of the things that you talked about in your crux of your message is the importance of the women, the importance of the grandmothers, divine feminine. And I wanted you to just kind of elaborate on that.
Well, absolutely. It's absolutely true, but don't think anyone's more special than the other. There's no human being that's living or that's dead or that's going to come that has any greater connection with the first mother or father or the creator, or, the heavenly father or the heavenly mother, as everything is formed after its form, that no one has any more connection than the other. And then everybody has the ability, they're connected at all times inside them as a spirit lowered and a spirit within living. Everybody is equally connected and has an equal ability to click in. I had my own vision. I had a vision. I was walking into a grove of trees. And as I walked into the grove of trees, I saw a wigwam. It's a domed building that we that we lived in to symbolize the womb. And there was a man laying in it. This is the way it is. If you don't like it, it's just the way it is. And there was a man that was laying in it. And I looked to my right and I saw a solid white woman, white skin, white hair, and she was stirring a pot. Something was brewing. And she said, you need to go see him. He's over there. And so I walked over and I saw a man laying, and he talked with me. And I said, are you okay? And he says, I am now. And then I went back and she was standing there and I was weeping as I held her because I knew who she was. It's us. And then I woke up. It's us, the men, that have forgotten our responsibility and what we're accountable to. Our strength and endurance is to provide for the strength of the mother, and is not her strength the generations that endure. If we are taking now from those that have yet to come, then we are at war with them, more so than we are with each other now. And this is what we have to remember. When technology came, we had an opportunity to return to our family. And instead we found another, whether maybe it was forced, but to take more time from our family until our children not only didn't have their father, but now they don't have their mothers, and they don't have their grandmothers, and they don't have their grandfathers. And they got people we don't even know that live in cities that will never be and that will never meet, that tell us what it is they have to know and do to continue doing the same thing. Knowing that in 5, 6, 7 generations, there will be nothing left for them. So where is happiness found? In the veins of mountains? and the things we can take? Or is it found in the veins of our generations that have the ability to live? We have to really reflect upon this. And not only that, but are we at war with creation? Even the mosquito has a purpose. Even a mosquito's heart was fashioned by the Creator in a womb of its mother. We forget that the very womb that you were born within in 9 months produces an elephant in 2 years and some insects in 1 day. How great is our Creator? And if he will do such things in 1 day, 9 months, or 2 years, what will he do when he casts his judgment upon what we are doing? Will he allow us to destroy all of creation? Will he allow us to remove the hope of the future generations? These are things to reflect upon. And if it seems like pie in the sky, and it seems like, oh, cliche magic, well, just stand by. Stand by, because the entire earth will be grabbed and shook in a way that you can't even fathom. We tell the creation story that they stood and watched the sun set in the east because the world turned the other direction then. Something to really pause
Absolutely.
and reflect on.
And the wild thing is that story, even 40, 50 years ago, about the sun setting in the east would be wild. And now we know that the earth did rotate the other way.
Well,
you know, we've had cataclysms with polar shifts, and every 12 to
and what do we
24,000
know?
years, there's...
We take the
Right.
abalone shell and we put sage in it to burn it, and we try to show you. We did this, hundreds of years ago. You look, you see all the colors. It's like a rainbow. That's the real thing that's in front of us. That's the flaming sword from that thing in the sky. It was changed. The light changed. But this is what it is. It's not red and green and brown and blue. It's this. The illusion is what's around us. And we were saying that before they understood even that a photon is bouncing off an atomic element, that there's vast space between. That you say the flaming sword prevents us from seeing the garden. Is not the sun and its light a flaming sword that's creating a matrix around us of color that is not true? And what of the space between? The atoms in an average human body, the average human body, if they could touch these atomic elements that are so sacred that if one of them is split, it ended an entire world war. And yet, if all the atoms in your body could touch, they'd be a sphere the width of a human hair. Who are you? And where are we? And what are we doing? What are we doing?
Love
Can
it.
we change?
Love it. Okay.
Is it possible?
So now I've got a new one that I'm going down. Shane and I were doing some research on the church, LDS Church History Library. They have a catalog online, okay? You can Google LDS Church History Library catalog, and in it, you can search for anything. You can go in and put your ancestors' names, and it's going to see if there's any documents that are in there, okay? So we were browsing through Native American tribes, North America. There's like a section you can click on it and it pulls up all of these documents, right? And we highlighted like 5 of them that we wanted to see. And we went down and we had an appointment today and they pulled them out. You got to register, you go in, you put your white gloves on, and they're bringing you these documents. One of the documents that we asked for was this book about the traditions. It was called The Traditions of the Dakota. Okay. And in this, it was a book that they say was written somewhere between it took place somewhere between the 1700s and 1800s. And this is what it said. And when we were reading this, I literally my mind exploded. And here we go. So it says the arrival roll. Here's a summary of John the Beloved's prophecies. John the Beloved, prophecies, teachings, and interactions with the Elk Nation, based on the document Traditions of the Dakota. Arrival and role. John the Beloved came to the Elk Nation as a spiritual guide and prophet. His arrival is depicted as divine intervention aimed at providing the Elk Nation with teachings that would strengthen their spiritual and moral foundations. Prophecies. The Golden Age. John foretold of a golden age for the Elk Nation, a period of peace, prosperity, and enlightenment. This era would be marked by a harmony with nature, abundance in resources, and a deeper connection with the divine. Future hardships. He also warned of future challenges and hardships that the Elk Nation would face, including conflicts with other tribes and the arrival of foreign settlers, which would lead to significant losses and sufferings. Generational curses. John spoke about the constant consequences of certain actions that would affect multiple generations, emphasizing the importance of righteous living to avoid them. Teachings, spiritual practices, moral conduct, unity and cooperation, interactions, There's an entire book of these teachings. And what blew me away is I believe, and I was talking to Shane about this, the LDS people are the only ones that believe that John the Revelator has stayed on this earth the entire time and has continued to preach and manifest. And here there's an entire record of people of this elk nation, and they don't say it was some white guy from the other side. They say it was John the Beloved. Like, there is no mincing words, 100%. I'm curious, have you ever heard of this?
Yeah, and the Elk Nation were called the Hoof Nation, and all Anishinaabe Algonquin know about them. They were actually they were my dudum, and they controlled all of what is north of Lake Superior up to Lake Winnipeg, and there's lots of stories about them, and what occurred. But they used to be like an independent nation because they integrated with the Star people. Now the Dakota is a hybrid group. It's the people of the Star that intermarried with the Anishinaabe, and they created the Dakota. That's where the Dakota came from. And they were out of Kaposia, Minnesota, where our grandmothers are buried. And Machiquayan Sadik Sangab, whose mother was Ojibwe and father was Dakota, was the head of them spiritually, because when we go to the lodge, the men are told what to do by the woman. And you're called an Oshka Bewis, and she'll say, Shka, do this, and Shka, do that, because you remember you didn't get anything other than from your mother. And so, yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, what's interesting is if John was amongst them, and we know John has authority given to him directly by Jesus Christ, if they didn't have authority, he would certainly give it to them. If he's amongst their people and teaching them these things, he's not going to not give him the authority. We didn't read the whole book, so I don't know. He probably didn't have to give him the authority because he's like, oh, you guys already have it. I'm just here to teach you what's coming. But this was a random book, totally random. We picked 5 different books under just to go down there. And that was one that absolutely blew our mind. So it's cool that
this
you
is
know
what
about that.
The European and French turned the Anishinaabe and the Sioux peoples against each other. We never were against each other. And the Oseti Sakowin people were sacred people that integrated with us when they showed up, and they grew into a mighty pie. I know, because this is my family. And people say, how do you have so many Sioux and how you have so many Anishinaabe ancestors? It's not my job. It's not my job to explain to you how families work. As people from Europe say, oh, I'm French and German and I'm Spanish and I'm Irish, and they don't have a problem rattling that off, right? But they love to tell us what is and is not, even though we have stones and we have stories to talk about people with beards that came and walked through us that had almost magical powers. All the way down to Central America. But again, we're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed, because we're just American now. The decisions aren't even made. It's already over, right? What are you talking about? Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so great answer. So here's one of the topics. There was a comment that came on one of the videos. And then this ties into the LDS forum, and there's a lot of people talking about this. And this might be something that goes to your ego, but it's nice to say. And I want to see what your position on this. So this is what the lady says. She says, his name is David? Question. Wow. I wonder, ... Been waiting and watching for people to rise up over 40 years. And then on this LDS forum, these guys are just chatting away, being like, I wonder if this guy's the Davidic servant. I wonder if he's a forerunner of the Davidic servant. Have you ever considered that?
Yeah, I sat there and listened to the Jewish rabbis telling me a lot about this stuff too. Let me tell you this, every single one of you needs to be a servant of the Savior, Jesus Christ, equally, number one. Number two, when you go back and read the scriptures, you never see anybody standing up that you're reading about that says, oh, it's me, and oh, look at me, and looking back, I'm so special. No, you see people doing. So I'll keep doing. You do your part too. Pray, act in faith, rely on the Spirit, and trust in the Lord. And if it's meant to be and it's in our generation, I guess it's going to be.
Love it. Trevor, next question.
Okay. This one is just, thank you. I'm learning so much. I never knew how these people have been controlled and their rights have been taken away from them. Are these laws that bind them still in effect? And then it says, for shame, I'm so glad Chief came forward. You talked about it a little bit, but just hit that a little bit more. Like people,
I'll first say I'm I'm a treaty chief second. I'm an Ogima first. And I'll claim Ogima before I claim chief. It's a higher title. But yeah, they're still in effect. They have status laws in Canada. They have blood quantum laws in the United States. They still, even though they know that they control, what's the mission statement of the Bureau of Indian Affairs? Line 1, to ensure the economic development and advancement of the tribal peoples. And yet, how have they done since they were created in 1823 under the Department of War? Are they not at war with us when we have no control over our economic prosperity? And yet they say when our families are impoverished and we have no economic development, this is important to talk about. The worst thing that could ever happen is to split a family up. And yet we're living in the same state that your people were living in the 1800s because you placed us in that state, took our resources for your benefit, saying you would provide something back, never did. Where's the horses and plows? And you wonder why we never had farms. And oh, by God, we couldn't have used the horses and plows anyways, because the land was not meant where you placed us to farm. And so then you say, even today, oh, you're impoverished and you don't have jobs and you can't provide for your families and we're going to take your children away, and they do. In Canada, we are 3% of the population, and yet we are 80% of the children in foster care, and yet they're not in tribal families. And in the United States, through the great Midwest, 6 out of 10 kids and we're like less than 1% of the population. 6 out of 10 are Indian kids placed in foster care outside of our communities. And when we fight in federal court, we have to spend millions of dollars to try to ensure that we can at least keep the kids in our own communities. But oh, they say our communities aren't progressed enough. How can we progress when you took everything to progress, left us nothing to progress, and blame us for the famished cow nipple we're sucking upon? That's number one. Number two, if your people come onto our reservation and they say the war is not over or the war is over, no, it's not. Talking about what's occurring in Gaza. And we've lost since 2000 when we forced Canada and the United States to start tracking missing and murdered Indigenous women and children. Since then, in 24 years, we've passed 100,000 people, women and children, dead and gone. Every year, go pick 5 people from every community that are women. They'll be gone because the law states that the Americans or the Canadians can come into our lands and commit crimes. And as long as they leave, we can't prosecute them or go get them and bring them back. Are we sovereign? And so they come on and they build these big camps to grab oil, and they flood in a month, 10,000 people. And 6 months later, they leave, and 10, 15, 50 people gone, missing. Right? They say, you can't talk about it. What about my Aunt Cindy and Aunt Penny? Right? You can come on and commit crimes in our communities, and we can't grab you, detain you, prosecute you. And yet if we leave and go in your communities, you bring tanks in. If I go into your property and I try to build, you'll show up and drag me off to jail. And yet you come onto our property, onto our people's land where we're carrying the deeds and titles, and you say we really don't have it because you hold it in trust. And if we protest on our very Indian land about you building pipelines through because we don't want them to leak into our water, you send tanks in to take people out who are carrying staffs and drums. And you That's say crazy. We're equal? And you say the war's over, right? Wake up. Because it's only a matter of time, as I told someone back in the Marine Corps, long time ago, when I said something and he fell under a table. It's only a matter of time before it's one drop more. And then that cloud drops the rain. And the Creator says, I guess I'm going to keep my promise to you. Right? Yeah. And no red, white, and blue flag is going to protect you in that.
Okay, here's the next one. So you were talking about the 7 fires prophecy on one of our podcasts, and one of the comments came in that said, wow, I just looked up the 7 fires prophecy. Amazing. I had never heard of it, but it appears to be directly related to the prophecy rock of the Hopi. I also see an echo to the Hindu and Asian teachings regarding chakras. There are 7 chakras which represent a path of progression through which each person must develop. And another thing I studied would say that the path that each individual must travel must also be traveled by a society and even by a planet. These patterns go down to the atomic level and up to the cosmic level. So I see the 7 fires prophecy as a further evidence of these eternal principles that repeat again and again through all levels. Anything that you want to cover more about the 7 fires prophecy?
Yeah, it's totally true. It was our promise that we knew the future because of it. And we knew that if we were aware and awake, we would know which age we were within. And if we did, then we would know what's coming next. And it would give us hope amidst the darkness. And sometimes when all you see is one ember left in the fire, well, let's just give it a little breath. But we know that that all of creation is connected, that you are equally here as well as bound to the furthest reaches of the universe. And that your voice, the great gift that was given to man, resounds not just in front of you. You go into the cave and yell, it comes back to you, right? But through the earth, through the universe, that we are impacting everything. We are connected to, there is nothing that you are not influencing and impacting. And if you don't believe me, go stand next to, if you go to sick water, dirty water, and go sit by it, you yourself will get sick. Why? Because the water molecules in you align with the water molecules of the mass that's next to you. The more sick we make our environment, the more sick our body is, because the molecules align. Okay, we're connected, and we make our own hell. So yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I had I was with my daughters last night, Father's Day, right? And I found an opportunity to, do a little teaching to my kids. And I pulled up, my daughter was asking me about one of the podcasts with you and asked me about you. And I pulled up this one section of the video, and it made this incredible teaching experience for my kids. And to give you an idea, 11 years old, 16 years old, 19 years old, right? The 11-year-old is just like in church and believes everything. She hasn't come across any doubts. The 16-year-old, she's just like, I don't know if any of this is true. I don't even know if there's a God. The 19-year-old has a boyfriend who's left the church. I don't know where she's at. It's scary to bring up these things, right? And so there was a part where you were talking about the seven fires prophecy, and it was so beautiful. And you said, we believe, our stories that we believe is that you were a spirit before you came here. And you're a spirit down here on an earth, tethered to a body. And that is such a beautiful teaching. This is what I told my kids. I said, do you guys know that not any of the Catholics, not the Muslims, not the Jews, they don't believe in spiritual premortality, but these natives do, and their history does. And listen to this. And I played them that section. I'm like, isn't that amazing? And my kids were clicking, just thinking like, wow, there's a whole nother people out here, not just LDS, not just Mormons, that believe that we were spirits before this. And I could see the light clicking in their brain as they were hearing this. And I challenge any of you parents that are listening to this, have this conversation, go and find that video and show that to your kids. It was an affirming witness. Like, they got it right away, and they're like, wow, that is cool. So I wanted to say thank you for that, because I had a really neat Father's Day. And it's rare that you get to share stuff with your kids that are like, okay, that's true. So anyways,
we know these things are true. That we are Anishinaabe. We are the good spirits lowered. We know this is true, that we're toes dipped in water. So you're mostly there than here. You're still with your creator and father. And this is just a moment to gain an identity of who you are. Then you become something different, something more, a level of next level. Oji Chagwan. That's a spirit in a body. And then you heard your mother's heartbeat. Then you felt her heartbeat, and you felt your own. And now you're on the trail of recording a vision of experience to say who you are, right? That's the first, we share that in common. We're all going to stand before the creator. And when the video screen plays, we're all going to have the first few moments exactly the same. And this is the great miracle. If I was born in the womb of your mother, and I came out surrounded by the people that you grew up with, in the environment that you grew up with, taken through the experiences that you experienced, I'd be closer to you today than I am me. That's why we say in a phrase you would understand, shed your sight and you will see I am you and you are me. Stop judging each other. But we are spirit, absolutely. But all things are as well. The things of the air, the earth, the water.
It ties in so well to LDS theology and everything that we understand. And it's so funny to me that the hater 817 emails that you got are coming from LDS people, because all of these things that you're teaching, if they simply took them and, like Gordon B. Hinckley said, add them to what we have, bring all the good, add them, it literally makes our case so much better. And I love it. And I think people will, and like we said,
Well, they want to
haters that
say,
are,
they want to say, who are you? We have something more than you, forgetting they're a reflection of what we have.
yeah, absolutely. It almost reminds me of the scripture in the Book of Mormon where it says a Bible, a Bible. We already have another Bible. It's just like we're fulfilling the
Now,
prophecies that are in the Book of Mormon.
Now, other than just setting aside the drama with trying to convert Jews into a tribe meant for Gentiles, okay? We'll just put that one aside.
We'll table that.
You're going out to the world and telling the world. You're sending your children, your daughters and your sons to tell the world that have the Bible, that if we add upon your faith, if we give you something that secondarily supports the initial thing you had, then it's for good and it's good fruit, and accept it and receive it. And yet to the very people that you claim to have received what it is you're adding upon to other people, if we say we're bringing something to add upon what you have to help add upon others, you say, I don't want it and I don't accept it. Are you the authors of Scripture? Or were my ancestors? Right? And while your ancestors were murdering my ancestors, we still place within your culture and your society the ability for you to be refined generation by generation until your genocidal ways are removed and you can sit in the circle of the human family again, which prior to Joseph Smith was not possible because you were murdering those who had yellow, red, and black skin.
I just want to remind all LDS people of what we believe. This is out of our scripture, 2 Nephi 28, verse 26 and 27. And make sure you aren't the one fulfilling this prophecy. It says, yea, woe be unto him that hearkeneth unto the precepts of men and denieth the powers of God and the gift of the Holy Ghost. Verse 27, yea, woe be unto him that saith, we have received and we need no more.
And Shane, I want to go on the record right now, and I want to call out any LDS people that are pushing back on this. And this is my missionary moment right now. The 13th article of faith. Okay. We believe all things. We hope all things. We have endured many things, and we hope to be able to endure all things. If there is anything virtuous, lovely, or of good report or praiseworthy, we seek after these things. Shame on you. Come to repentance and accept these beautiful teachings that are coming out. This is the time that is foretold in the Book of Mormon. The time is now. Crazy. Okay, so wrapping up, one little message, and just so you know, I've got a page and a half of comments and messages like this. There's so much. I'm probably going to send this to Jody just so that you can see the positive love and pouring out, and people going out of their way to post comments is beautiful. And like, I wish I had comments like this about me anywhere. I'd go back and read them like twice a day. I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. Anyways, this one I thought was pretty cool. And there's just tons like this. It says, there's no words to express the excitement and love I feel every time I listen to Chief Mitika. What an exciting, extraordinary time we live in. I absolutely have so much love and respect for this chief. I just want to make note. I have Cherokee from my mom's side and Hopi from my dad's side. Thank you, Chief. I look forward to learning even more from you. So, on my part, this is pretty much all I had. I wanted to thank you, and message that you are sharing is beautiful, and it affirms my faith. It makes me want to read my Book of Mormon more. It makes me want to understand about these native, ancestors, my brothers and sisters. I don't know any of these things. And I think so many of us are waking up in this genocide and the sterilization and the religious rites. Like, are you kidding me? It was illegal for you guys to practice your religion until 1978. Is that the year?
Yeah, August
1978. Nobody knew this. This is absolutely crazy.
We could vote in 1968, the protected voting rights, but we couldn't raise our kids, couldn't speak the language off reserve, couldn't practice the culture, couldn't practice the spirituality, which we had more in common with the Jew in than they could ever have imagined at the time. It's wild stuff. Couldn't go to a regular hospital. Couldn't go to a regular hospital until the Indian Welfare Act of August of 19. This is wild stuff that nobody knows about. And they think, oh, it's in the past and forget about it. Would you ever tell a Jew today that the Holocaust was just in the past, even though it was their great-grandparent? You wouldn't fathom it, right? We're talking about my dad, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. You better hold your tongue, because I won't hold mine. And I'm
And
pretty
it's
sure
amazing how
my words will come out faster than your thoughts can respond.
it's amazing how much this is like when I've gone back and I'm reading the Book of Mormon, how it talks about these tribes and how they'll be scattered and oppressed and trodden and all of this, and like that's just gone over my head. I've read it so many times, and you're right. One thing that has happened in society, like as sad as it is, when I was a little kid and we drove through an Indian reservation, it was like my dad was like, "Yeah, those poor guys, they've got some gene and they're all alcoholics and they're just struggling." And it's just like some people are more addicted to other things like the Irish, and like that's how I always had this picture. I'm like, oh man, poor Indians.
Yeah. Well, we forget, it's exactly right. And we forget that the United States just couldn't stay out of global conflicts, through the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they had this thing
Until
called
today.
back then they had the forced draft, which, oh, by the way, is coming back.
I saw that.
Yeah. And what did that mean? So imagine you're an Indian kid and you're 7, 8 years old. You're taken from your mother and father. Now you're a mother and father and you don't have your child. Who knows how horrific that must have felt like. Didn't know where they were taken. You're a kid. You don't even see your grandparents. You don't have no connection whatsoever. You turn 18. And if you're a woman, you go back to a community that has no young men because they're all drafted into the military to go fight foreign wars. By the time they come back in their mid-20s, they're broken. They don't have a connection with their family. They don't know how to be fathers and they don't know how to be mothers. And then you blame them because they can't be. And you provide no services to assist them in restoring that. This is what has happened and we've been trying to climb out of. And now we have communities that are broken, drug infested, alcohol infested, that are self-licking ice cream cones, with these casinos. And now we're the casino people and we're not casino people, where we're just a self-licking ice cream cone of despair. And we need people's help.
Well, that's great transition. We need people's help. Yeah. And we got a conference coming up in September. Listen, I'm going to be there. Trevor's going out there. Like we're coming out guns a-blazing. Just remind all of our viewers, because I've had people reach out saying, hey, when is it? Where is it? What's going on? How? And we've sent them the link to donate, but they want to come. Like we are fielding people that want to come out there. Is this open for anybody who wants to come?
Anybody can come. And it's remarkable. I found out today that we even have a stone. I don't know how they made it, but there's a 7 Fires migration stone where somehow they were able to put stones within stone that are shaped exactly like the Great Lakes. Meaning somehow we had the ability to melt stone, to put stones within stone. And this is going to be coming as well, because on it is also listed a place that's a big circle where the first mother and father built a settlement that you would call somewhere in Missouri. And this is coming as well. And anyone can look at it and go, wow, they had a map of the land long before you got here. And so, yeah, it's going to be September 21st. It's going to be in the Fond du Lac Reservation, which is an Anishinaabe community. And it's just next to Sheboygan Bay, which is next to they call them the Apostle Islands, or Madeline Island. It's the 7th stopping point in our 7 Fires migration. There is an 8th stopping point, which is Turtle Mountain, which is where we're also in October, we're going to be starting the revolution at, the restart in the heart of North America. And we'd also ask everyone to support our candidate there. His name's Jer Peltier, Jer for chair, Jer the Bear Peltier for chair. And as we strip away all these policies in our communities. But yeah, be there, because there's going to be scrolls. Yeah.
And then you're actually speaking on Saturday.
That's correct.
This Saturday.
In Utah.
We're talking
in Utah. Yeah.
June 22nd in Utah.
That's right. It's going to be this coming Saturday in Spanish Fork, Utah, at the Maple Mountain High School, where I'll be bringing one of the scrolls that's pretty significant, because it was a scroll that records a message that, and you can see it, that the first father said to his children after he finished naming everything, and it must have took a long time because it's a big world. And there was a message that he gave not for just his children, but for his future generations. And I'll be sharing that, as well as a direct message from, I have a message from the rabbis in Israel, and what we're going to be doing next. And so, yeah, that's going to happen this Saturday. It's a watershed moment where we're turning the bridge on something. And either you're going to hop on the train and come along with us, or you're going to be left at the station because we're leaving you. So, you know, it's one of those things I got told in the Marines. Well, the boat's going this way, and if you're this way, you're going to be swimming alone. So
get on
tickets.
board.
It's
Get your
it's only
tickets.
$75 to get. There's so many of our people and all these podcasts you've been on. They're like, how can we get more of this in person? $75.
Yeah,
that's
Sign me
come
up.
and join. I just want to wrap up with two things. Number one, I want to read something out of 3rd Nephi. And number two, Chief Midiga, I would ask that we have this tradition whenever we have you on, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but I
I want
love
to sing a song.
ending with a song. Yes,
I
that's
got a
where
song.
I'm going.
I already
So
had it ready.
let me read these two quick verses so the Gentiles understand what the Savior's saying. And then we'll close with the song here. But this is in 3rd Nephi 21, verse 12 and 14. It says, "And my people who are a remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles, yea, in the midst of them." Jumping to verse 14. "Yea, woe be unto the Gentiles, except they repent. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Father, that I will cut off thy horses out of the midst of thee, and I will destroy thy chariots." Listen, as Gentiles, we need to recognize where our power is, and that's with Israel. So if you're adopted into Israel, you're a part of Israel. We're not trying to adopt them into us. In fact, we are adopted into them, and it is our job as Ephraim to lift them up and to help them. And so, listen, I'm with you. Trevor's with you. David's with you. Like, we hear the rallying cry. Not only is it time as Latter-day Saints for us to make some changes, but it's time for America to make some changes. And the first shall be last shall be first. Okay. The last shall be first is coming, and it's led by Chief David Midiga. So thank you. And I look forward to the song.
Yeah. So never forget that you are your ancestors' prayers made flesh, and you are the bridge, the hope of your generations that are yet to come. So if you think I'm mighty and strong, maybe you should be as well. So this song says that we remember you. Speaking of our ancestors, when we're standing before the shining sun, we remember you when we're underneath the moon in the sky, that we remember you as our ancestors, and we remember our relatives, and we will remember always. Gimme quen mi go gijiz ejiz agiya zegoyan. Gimme quen ni go debegegejiz ba beoyan. Mekwenda gojida aben goja. Mekwenda gojida aben goja. Gimme quene mi go mane kube jigana. Gimme quene mi go inawe magona. Mekwenda gojida aben goja. Mekwenda gojida aben goja. Language.
Thank you. Thank you. Megwich means thank you. So,
That's right.
For myself, I'm Shane Baldwin. Jody Taylor, thank you so much for coordinating this. And just to let you know, so you don't blow us up there was a treasured male white buffalo born in Montana in the 1930s. So about 100 years ago. Trevor Keys, David the Lion Douglas, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.